Following the massive security breach, Target stores now offering free credit monitoring to the customers for the next year. Starting this week, customers can sign up to get copies of their credit reports, insurance against identity theft, and daily credit monitoring. So how do you protect your credit against these massive scams? Well, joining us now to help sort it out, financial author and lecturer Chris Bridges, who also runs the Credit with Chris website. Thanks for being with us again. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Let's get right to it. As far as protecting ourselves, because everybody seems to shop with some type of plastic these days, what protects us more, using a debit card or using a credit card?
Well, and I have to tell you that Target is not alone. You may have heard today that Neiman Marcus joined them.
Absolutely.
So they're in good company.
And there may be more.
There are going to be more as far as breaches are concerned. Well, there's, some fundamental differences between using a debit and a credit card. They both, of course, pull from the bank accounts. And depending on the banks, there may be some guidelines depending on the limits and so forth that you can pull. But basically, the way to look at it is when you're using your debit card, you're immediately accessing the money that is in your account. However, when you're using your credit card or using the same card as a credit card, you are actually using the money against the credit that is established to you, which could also be the same money that's in the account. But it does depend on a couple of things. Number one, maybe the limits that you have access to with regards to, the money that you have, that the bank has given you. So when you have a fraud issue, that's a big problem, because if you're using debit, they may be able to go in and take a lot more money out of your account, which could affect the amount of time that you're able to get that money back because of the bank's requirements. So there's a big difference, not if you're just using it sort of day to day, but trying to protect yourself. You really should try to use more credit that limits your liability and limits the potential risk that you have against.
And is that easier as well if somebody does get our information and use it for us to try to recoup that money so that we're not held liable for somebody else's charges that they made on our account?
Both of them, the banks, most banks, all banks, are going to be able to recover through a fraud investigation. The difference is the timing of which you get your money back and how much money they may have got access to. So that's the difference. Both of them, I mean, you can have a breach on your debit card just like you have a breach on your credit card. So unfortunately, we're not protected so much from the breach itself. It's the recovery process.
It's so tough because for so long in learning financial accountability, we said, don't run off those credit cards because that's not money that we currently have right now. But it seems like in a case like this, as long as you're careful with it and you make sure that you don't overcharge, it may protect you a little bit better in the case of something like this.
No, absolutely. And remember that even with a bank, they issue debit and credit. So it could be a card that you have from the bank that's pulling right out of your account. However, the way you use it could be different between debit and if you use it as a credit. If you go into the store, they'll ask you, do you want to use this as a debit card or a credit card? I recommend that we stay, even if we're using that type of card, that we stay on the credit side. Plus, we reduce some fees.
Does it make a difference whether we're shopping in store or online?
It could. As far as protection, though, unfortunately not. Just like we know with Neiman Marcus today being announced that they had a fraud breach. It's difficult to protect ourselves unless we don't do any shopping. And who's going to not use, plastic today? People don't use cash today. So it's really about just being more aware of where you have the liabilities and then being more careful. And again, I suggest credit.
And quickly then, what's the best way to make sure that we are not, or that we find out that something like this has happened, or to check to see if there have been breaches?
Absolutely. You've got to check your account more regularly than once a month. It used to be that you could check do your reconciliation once a month. Now you should probably want to check it on a regular basis, every other day or so, just to make sure that there have been no breaches.
Well, it's an unfortunate part of life in these days.
It is.
The cards are supposed to make things more convenient, but that comes at a cost sometimes.
Absolutely.
Chris Bridges, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Good advice.
Thank you.
Allison, back to you.